Listen to me. A year from now, your life will not change because you wished it would. It will change because of what you do today, not next month, not Monday, today. Because here's the truth. Most people avoid. You don't need a miracle in 2026. You need momentum, 1%, every day. That's it. This is not about hype. This is about discipline. This is about identity. This is about deciding right now that the old version of you does not get to follow you into the future. Motivation is the most overrated force in personal growth. People treat it like a requirement, like something has to strike them before they can move. They say, I'll start when I feel ready. I'll go all in when I'm motivated. But listen closely. Motivation is unreliable, emotional, and temporary. It shows up when conditions are perfect and disappears the moment things get hard. If your progress depends on motivation, your future will be inconsistent by design. The truth is, the most successful people don't feel motivated most days. They feel committed, they feel responsible, they feel anchored to something deeper than emotion. Motivation asks, how do I feel today? Discipline asks, who am I becoming? And that question changes everything. Discipline is not loud. It doesn't come with fireworks or adrenaline. It's quiet. It's repetitive. It's showing up when your mind is full of excuses and your body wants comfort. Discipline is doing the work when no one is clapping, when no one is checking, when no one would even notice if you quit. And that's why it's powerful. Because every time you choose discipline over motivation, you strengthen self-trust. You tell yourself, I do what I say I'll do. That message compounds. Over time, you stop negotiating with yourself. You stop asking permission to be great. You act because it's who you are, not because you feel inspired. Most people don't fail because they lack talent or opportunity. They fail because they build their lives around feelings. When they feel confident, they act. When they feel tired, they stop. When they feel discouraged, they retreat. But feelings are weather, they change constantly. If you let your actions be dictated by temporary emotions, you'll never build anything permanent. Discipline teaches you to move forward regardless of the internal noise. It teaches you that discomfort is not danger. It's a signal that you're stretching beyond who you were yesterday, and growth only happens there. There will be days when everything in you says, not today. Those are the days that matter most. Because anyone can show up when it's easy. Anyone can work when they're excited. But showing up when you're drained, distracted, or doubting, that's where identity is forged. That's when you separate from the version of you that quits under pressure. Discipline doesn't remove difficulty. It trains you to walk through it without breaking, and every time you do, you become stronger than the excuse that tried to stop you. Discipline also frees you from the lie that you need massive effort to make progress. You don't. You need consistency. You need a decision that no matter how small the step is, you will take it. On low energy days, discipline doesn't demand perfection, it demands presence. 10 focused minutes still count. 1 intentional action still moves you forward. Discipline understands momentum better than motivation ever will. It knows that progress is built by stacking small wins, especially on days when quitting feels justified. That's how confidence grows, not from hype, but from proof. When discipline becomes your foundation, your life stabilizes. You stop swinging between extremes. You stop starting over. You stop waiting for the perfect moment. You become dependable to yourself first, and that changes how you see yourself. You no longer identify as someone who tries. You become someone who executes, someone who finishes, someone who doesn't need to feel good to do good. That shift is subtle, but it's permanent. And once discipline is installed, motivation becomes a bonus, not a requirement. Most people dismiss small progress because it doesn't satisfy the ego. They want visible transformation, dramatic breakthroughs, instant results. They want the highlight reel without the daily grind. But the truth is, real power is built quietly. 1% doesn't look impressive today. It doesn't feel like much. It doesn't give you a rush. But it works on a level most people don't understand, because small improvements compound. And compounding is not loud. It's patient. It's relentless. It's mathematical. When you improve just a little every day, you don't stay on the same level, you accelerate. And one day, you wake up in a life that looks nothing like the one you started with. Think about how everything powerful in this world grows. Muscles don't build in a single workout. Wealth isn't created in one paycheck. Trust isn't earned in one conversation. It's all layered. It's repetition over time. 1% is showing up for the basics when no one is watching. It's choosing water instead of soda. It's reading a few pages instead of scrolling. It's going to bed a little earlier. These choices feel insignificant in isolation, but together they create momentum. Momentum is dangerous in the best way, because once it starts moving, it pulls you forward even on days you feel weak. Small actions also remove the fear of starting. Big goals intimidate the mind. They feel heavy, overwhelming, and distant. 1% feels doable. It lowers resistance. It says, just take one step. And once you take that step, you're no longer stuck. You're in motion. Motion creates clarity. Motion builds confidence. The mind stops arguing when the body is already moving. This is how small actions outsmart procrastination. They don't challenge your limits, they bypass them. And before you realize it, the thing you were avoiding becomes part of your routine. What people don't talk about is how 1% changes your identity. Every small win sends a signal to your brain, this is who I am now. You're not trying to be disciplined, you are disciplined. You're not hoping to improve, you are improving. Identity is built through evidence, not intention, and small actions provide daily evidence. When you keep promises to yourself, even tiny ones, your self-image upgrades. You start expecting more from yourself. You raise your standards naturally, and once your identity shifts, your behavior follows automatically. You don't need willpower when something feels aligned with who you believe you are. Consistency also protects you from burnout. People who chase massive leaps often crash because they demand too much too fast. 1% respects sustainability. It understands that progress must fit into your real life, not an ideal version of it. You don't need perfect days, you need repeatable ones. You need habits that survive stress, boredom, and bad moods. Small improvements are resilient, they bend without breaking, and over time they create strength that doesn't disappear when life gets chaotic. The most dangerous thing about 1% improvement is that it's invisible until it isn't. For weeks, nothing seems to change. For months, the results are subtle, and that's where most people quit. But those who stay consistent cross a threshold where effort and results finally meet. Suddenly, the work feels lighter. The habits feel automatic. The progress feels exponential. That's not luck. That's compound growth revealing itself. And once you experience that shift, you realize the truth. Small actions were never small. They were building a future that only discipline could unlock. Your life is a mirror of what you tolerate, not what you hope for, not what you talk about, what you allow to stay. Every standard you accept, consciously or unconsciously, sets the ceiling for your future. If you tolerate disorganization, your life feels chaotic. If you tolerate broken promises to yourself, your confidence erodes. If you tolerate people draining your energy, your focus disappears. Standards are not about perfection, they're about self-respect. And self-respect is not a feeling, it's a practice. You practice it every time you decide what is acceptable and what is not. Most people think standards are about rules, but they're really about identity. When you raise your standards, you're not just changing behavior, you're declaring who you are. You're saying, this is how I operate now. And that declaration carries weight. The world responds differently to someone who knows their own rules. You speak differently. You move with intention. You stop apologizing for your boundaries. High standards create clarity, and clarity eliminates hesitation. When you know what you stand for, decisions become faster and easier because the line is already drawn. Lower standards feel comfortable in the moment, but they come with a hidden cost. They quietly steal your future. Skipping the workout today becomes skipping discipline tomorrow. Letting one excuse slide becomes a pattern of avoidance. Over time, you don't just lose progress, you lose trust in yourself. And self-trust is everything. Without it, even simple goals feel heavy. Raising your standards interrupts that cycle. It creates friction against your old habits. At first, it feels uncomfortable, even lonely. But that discomfort is a signal that you're growing the version of you that's settled. Standards must be lived daily, not announced publicly. They show up in how you manage your time, how you speak to yourself, how you handle pressure. Do you do what you said you would do when no one is checking? Do you clean up the messes you create, or do you avoid them? Do you prepare, or do you hope things work out? High standards are quiet but consistent. They don't seek validation. They demand alignment. And alignment creates a sense of inner stability that no external praise can replace. Raising your standards also changes the people and environments you allow into your life. You stop chasing approval. You stop entertaining chaos. You stop negotiating your values for convenience. This isn't about cutting people off aggressively. It's about choosing intentionally. When your standards rise, some relationships naturally fall away, not out of anger, but out of mismatch. And that's not loss, that's space being created for growth, space for focus, space for peace, space for people and opportunities that match the level you're stepping into. The moment you truly raise your standards, excuses lose their power. You no longer ask, "Can I get away with this?" You ask, "Does this align with who I am becoming?" That question changes everything. It shifts you from reacting to leading your own life. You stop living by default and start living by design. And once that shift happens, progress becomes inevitable. Not because life gets easier, but because you refuse to lower the bar to meet your weaknesses. Most people spend their lives trying to avoid pain, not realizing that avoidance is the very thing keeping them stuck. They design their days around comfort, convenience, and emotional safety, then wonder why nothing changes. But growth has never lived in comfort. Every meaningful transformation comes with friction. Pain is not a sign that something is wrong. It's a signal that something is changing. Muscles tear before they grow stronger. Confidence is built after discomfort, not before it. When you understand this, pain stops feeling like a threat and starts feeling like information. It tells you you're moving beyond the limits of who you used to be. Stagnation, on the other hand, is silent and deceptive. It feels safe. It feels familiar. It doesn't scream at you the way pain does. It whispers. It convinces you that tomorrow is a better time, that staying the same is reasonable, that you've got time. And slowly, without dramatic failure, years pass. The real danger is not struggling, it's settling. Because stagnation robs you of urgency. It dulls your edge. It makes average feel acceptable. And once average feels acceptable, greatness starts to feel unrealistic. That's how dreams die. Not with resistance but with neglect. Pain forces you to be present. It demands attention. When something is uncomfortable, you can't sleepwalk through it. You have to engage, you have to decide. That's why disciplined people don't run from discomfort. They use it. They understand that every hard moment is a vote for the future version of themselves. Waking up early when your body wants rest, speaking up when silence would be easier, staying consistent when progress feels slow. These moments don't feel good in the moment, but they pay dividends later. Pain is temporary, but the strength it builds stays. There is a difference between destructive pain and constructive pain, and wisdom is knowing which one you're facing. Destructive pain comes from ignoring problems, avoiding responsibility, and betraying your own standards. Constructive pain comes from effort, growth, and resistance against your lower instincts. One drains you, the other sharpens you. The problem is most people confuse the two. They avoid the short-term discomfort of discipline and end up living with the long-term pain of regret. Regret is heavier, it's quieter, but it lasts longer. And unlike effort, regret gives you nothing in return. When you stop fearing pain, you stop being controlled by it. You stop making decisions based on comfort and start making them based on alignment. You realize that confidence doesn't come from success. It comes from surviving difficulty. Every time you do something hard, you collect evidence that you can handle more than you thought. That evidence builds resilience, and resilience changes how you see challenges. What used to intimidate you now feels familiar. Not easy, but familiar. And familiarity breeds courage. You stop asking, what if this hurts? And start asking, what will it cost me if I don't act? The most empowered people are not those who live pain-free lives. They are the ones who choose their pain intentionally. They choose the pain of effort over the pain of regret, the pain of discipline over the pain of disappointment, the pain of growth over the pain of staying the same. Because every path has discomfort, there is no pain-free option. The only choice is which pain you're willing to carry. One builds your future, the other erodes it slowly. And once you truly understand that, you stop running from discomfort and start walking straight through it. Every thought you think has a source. It didn't appear out of nowhere. It came from something you saw, something you heard, something you allowed into your environment. And most people never stop to question that. They wake up, scroll, listen, absorb, react, and then wonder why their mind feels scattered, weak, unfocused. Your inputs are not neutral. They are shaping how you think, how you feel, and how you act. Whether you're intentional or not, you are being trained every single day. The only question is, who's doing the training? You or everything around you? Your brain is constantly king for patterns. It becomes what it consumes. If you feed it chaos, it produces anxiety. If you feed it distraction, it produces restlessness. If you feed it negativity, it produces doubt. You cannot expect clarity when your mind is filled with noise. You cannot expect confidence when your mental diet is fear-based, cynical, and shallow. And yet, people spend hours consuming content that weakens them, then try to flip a switch and perform at a high level. That doesn't work. Peak performance is built upstream, in what you allow into your mind, long before the moment of action arrives. Entertainment is not harmless when it dominates your attention. There is a difference between rest and escape. Rest restores you. Escape numbs you. When every free moment is filled with endless scrolling, gossip, outrage, and comparison, your mind never recovers. It stays overstimulated and underdeveloped. Focus becomes harder. Silence becomes uncomfortable. Deep work feels impossible. This isn't an accident, it's conditioning. And if you don't interrupt it, you will live at the mercy of whatever is loudest, fastest, and easiest to consume. The strongest minds are protected minds. They don't allow everything access. They curate. They choose. They understand that what they hear repeatedly becomes familiar, and what becomes familiar becomes believable. That's why you must be ruthless with what you listen to when you're tired, what you watch when you're bored, and who you give your time to when you're vulnerable. In those moments, your defenses are low and influence sinks in the deepest. Guarding your mind isn't weakness, it's strategy. You don't leave the doors unlocked to something valuable. Your environment also speaks to you, even when no words are being said. The people around you are inputs. Their habits, their language, their energy, they shape your standards. If you're constantly around people who complain, who settle, who normalize mediocrity, that mindset will start to feel normal. Not because you agree with it, but because repetition creates acceptance. Growth requires exposure to higher standards, to conversations that challenge you, to examples that remind you what's possible. You don't rise by accident, you rise by proximity and intention. When you audit your inputs, you take back control. You stop letting your attention be hijacked. You replace mindless consumption with purposeful intake, books instead of noise, conversations instead of commentary, silence instead of constant stimulation. At first, it feels uncomfortable because your brain is detoxing from distraction. But then something powerful happens. Clarity returns. Focus sharpens. You start hearing your own thoughts again. And when your mind becomes clear, your actions become deliberate. You stop reacting to life and start directing it from a place of strength.